Okay. Let's see here. Don't know if I'm going to see comments or not. See who comes in to join me. I think this is the first time. I think it's the first time I have broadcast simultaneously to YouTube and Facebook. For those of you who weren't over on YouTube a few minutes ago, I started with my usual music. If people want to enjoy Jen's immaculate taste in music, you have to view me from YouTube because they allow me to use copyrighted music, because they have licensing agreements. Facebook just ends up censoring me if I do that. So, but right now, no music. I'm just here. I'm live. I'm not Memorex for you Gen X's who remember that commercial. And we'll wait and see if we get some people on board. Somebody send me a comment, please. Send me a comment in the chat. I want to see if I can see it. Oh, hi. Hi, FizzGig. Are you on YouTube? Yes, you're on YouTube, right? Okay. Somebody on Facebook, if somebody on Facebook is watching, send me a comment, please. I want to see if it shows up. It might not. Facebook is so finicky. Yes, I figured that out by it shows me you've got a. Oh, there we are. Hey, I can see the Facebook comments too. Cool. You guys might not be able to see my reply if I type one, but I don't usually type replies anyway. So at least I can see everybody's comments. Okay, Kari, you do that. I think I'll keep it around. People get mad if I take it down, apparently. I take it down to do editing later and actually make the final product better. If I do an impromptu broadcast, typically I won't leave it online because usually I do it when I haven't spent time on my hair and I look, kind of disheveled and it's bad for my image. So I just get rid of it. You know how that goes. Okay, so I'm going to do a little update for everybody here on what's happening with the quest, the never-ending quest to get an inquiry. It's been going on for years and years and years. Hi, Leslie. Leslie's becoming a good friend. Lots of y'all are becoming good friends. Because of my disposition and because of my tendency to always speak what I think is true, and particularly when it's important to do so, I have angered many people over the years. I've lost many followers. I've halved my followers on probably at least 3 occasions for saying what I believed and angering people. But what I think has happened is that over time, I may have, decreased the total amount of followers I might have gotten had I gone along to get along all the time. But the quality has improved. So it's been condensing and the quality of my followers has improved dramatically. And I don't say that in light or to patronize. This is actually a real thing. I found that the quality of my followers has increased dramatically. It's people with whose minds are more open and they're not as easily offended and they're critical thinkers and they allow people to have different opinions. So, with maybe most of my followers, we don't sort of agree on everything, but that's okay. Okay, that's the way a free society is supposed to function. It's supposed to be a collection of people who may or may not agree on everything. Like I would say, God forbid we all always agree. What kind of a monotonous, brainwashed, dystopian society would that be? Okay. It's good to have disagreements. It's good that people see the world in different ways. This is why I'm surrounded in all these books with all the, different religions and philosophies and stuff from all over the world, because I enjoy people who have different ideas, right? No matter what those ideas are, there's some ideas I have to distance myself from because they're, you know, um, they have political implications to them. But when it comes down to it, like even people who believe things that I find offensive, I will allow them to have those beliefs, right? And I won't even necessarily judge them for those beliefs, because the most important thing to me for people, the most important thing for me for people is that they are sincere. Okay, I will allow somebody to be wrong. I will allow somebody to, have dramatically different views than I. Especially if I, like, I always allow them, but um, I'll tend not to get angry with them as long as I feel they're sincere. Okay, the people I can't stand are people who are insincere, okay, and manipulators and liars. These are the types of people I have no patience for. Right? This is why I don't like a lot of politicians. This is why I don't like Jordan Peterson, because he's insincere. Some people out there who follow Jordan Peterson think he's sincere. I could write a thesis on why he's not, but I'm not going to get into that. The point is that if I feel somebody is sincere, then I can work with them, okay? Because then I know at least that they're interested in sincerity and interested in the truth and interested in getting at the truth. Right. And I think everybody sort of needs to learn this. Right. So even this thing that I've been doing with Derek Sloan, right? I don't agree with everything that Derek Sloan says, but that's okay. Right. That is okay. Okay. And for the people, and I lost a bunch of followers when I announced that I was working with Derek Sloan to get this inquiry, and lost a whole bunch of followers because I guess they don't like Derek Sloan or something, or I thought it was an indication I support this, that, or the next thing. That's not the case. Okay, these political realities that we live in, right? Okay, we live in a system that I think is fundamentally flawed and corrupt, and it needs to be reworked sometime. Hopefully, it doesn't take forever, but it needs to be reworked because there are serious corrupting problems and influences in our democracy. I mean, it's gotten so bad with the manipulation of information and backroom dealing and stuff like that that it's hard to call it a democracy anymore, really. But I mean, the engine of democracy is there, right? It's just it needs some a lot of fine tuning. But in the democratic system we have here in Canada, and this applies in the United States too, there are two primary parties. There are some other parties here in Canada, more so than in the United States. But realistically, if we're talking about, say, the next election, whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not, somebody from the Liberal Party or somebody from the Conservative Party is going to be Prime Minister. Okay. So what do we do about that? Well, you can just not vote and say, well, I don't think the system works, so I'm just not going to vote. That's, I guess, a valid choice. But you may want to determine who your less than ideal leader is going to be, right? So one of the two is going to be. So it doesn't matter. Like, I can say good things about one leader or good things about it doesn't matter to me, really. So one of them is going to make it to the top. And my thing is that I have issues. So I've got something that most people know I've been trying to achieve now for over 3 years. Okay. And not just 3 years, it's been 3 long, hard years where I've put in almost, I wouldn't say almost, I put in pretty much every spare moment of my time into this for over 3 years, and I've been through a lot of wars, and I've been through a lot of trenches, and I haven't always come out, looking good to this group or that group or whatever group, and I've been demonized and vilified, and it's been a long struggle. That's when I started my sort of half broadcast over on YouTube. I played Bruce Coburn's song "Lovers in a Dangerous Time" because it's got that great line in there. It says that nothing worth having comes without some sort of fight. I didn't know that this fight would be years, but hopefully it leads to something worth having. And in my case, I've always had a goal. Okay. A newsflash for people would be that this debate, on our side of this debate, okay, for those who have sort of positioned themselves as activists and leaders opposing what we'll call the transgender agenda, in that group, I'm not going to point out any names, but in that group, there are what we call grifters. Okay. People who probably don't want this struggle to end because they get a lot of money and they get a lot of clicks and they get a lot of attention and they get a lot of popularity. And so they kind of, they fight the fight, but really they don't really want to see this struggle end. And the primary importance to them is themselves and their own reputations and the money that they take in. Okay. I don't like these people. I've had to work with some of these people along the line, but I don't like people who function like that. Unlike these people, I have never at any time in this struggle have I been driven by money, right? I'm in debt. Okay, so I'm thousands of dollars in debt from this. Lots of people have given me money over the years to try to help me. If that hadn't happened, like if people hadn't have given me money over the years, I probably wouldn't be able to do anything. I would have had my internet disconnected and probably be living in a box by the side of the road by now. But I haven't made a profit, right? So I haven't made a profit on this. In fact, as I say, I'm in the red. Whether or not I make that back at some point or not, I don't know. And quite frankly, I don't care because, as I said, I've never been in this for money. I have a goal. Okay. I've got goals, actually. My goals are to get an inquiry, a national inquiry into the medical pharmaceutical transitioning of minors. And ideally, that would lead to a bunch of things. I'm not going to mention here all the things I want it to lead to, but the main things would be to make it against the law to medically transition anybody under the age of 19. Right? That would be my primary goal. I also want us to get back to respecting truth and reality. Okay. There's very little in a diverse society, right? Comprised of people with all kinds of different religious beliefs and philosophies and worldviews. That's what our society is. And in a society like that, there's so much diversity that the only way that you can keep a society like that ordered, and I think the powers that be know this, right? The only way that you can keep a society like that ordered is if your laws and policies and programs are based on shared, knowable, testable, physical reality. Because it doesn't matter what faith or philosophy you're from, right? A ball will roll down an inclined plane at a certain speed. Okay, it's just part of reality, and sort of denying the physics of things is idiocy. Okay, and denying the fact that you are born one sex or another is lunacy. Okay, it is tethering and building our laws and society on internal constructions. Okay, so I identify as transgender, but transgender is an identity. Okay, identity is a social construction. Okay, it's there's all kinds of factors that contribute to your identity, some of which might be biological, but it's not, biological is not absolute determinant in your identity, right? There's social factors, there's, the society that you live in, there's the influence of your parents, influence of pop culture. As Carl Jung said, there is probably something resembling phylogenetic memory that is passed down through the species over the great expanse of time, sort of equivalent to the coding that'll tells birds how to make nests and how to fly and migration patterns and stuff like this. So there are all kinds of factors that form identity, but identity is a social, largely a social construction. Sex, on the other hand, is not a social construction. Okay, but what we've done here in society is we've allowed that to be inverted. Okay, and the ruling powers have allowed that to be inverted. So now they're saying that sex is a social construction and identity is innate. I mean, Josh Steffler, who used to broadcast with Freedom Free for All, would call that a satanic inversion, right? Now, I don't know about the whole Satan thing, but that's what it is, right? It's certainly, I would say, a devilish inversion, if nothing else, right? So I would want to have, hopefully, part of the outcome of an inquiry to address what has happened, like what allowed this to happen, right? How do we get into a situation where we have courts forcing people to deny physical reality? What has happened there? So let's, hope if we get an inquiry, that's addressed too. And in that process, women's rights are restored in terms of the right to, privacy for males if they want privacy. And, just because a male dresses up pretty and has long hair doesn't mean, okay, he's a woman and he can, go into the all women's spa or something, right? It's ridiculous. So all of that would be returned too. So these are like kind of the general and most important goals that I have. And these are the goals that I've sought earnestly and sincerely from day one. And I think people, for the most part, have sensed in, like, except for people who I would say are what we call competition and perhaps worried that I might take some of their limelight if I ever get the limelight, except for them, I think most people have sort of sensed that I have been sincere the whole time and that my intentions are sincere. I was loath to, ask for money or raise money all the time to my own detriment because I did not want to sully the impressions of my intentions and what I was trying to achieve. So now we've entered a very, it's a window of opportunity has opened. Okay. So, basically the stars, if you will, have aligned and there is an opportunity that has opened, and that involves my recent discussions and negotiations with Derek Sloan and his team. Okay. It just so happens at this time that there is a National Conservative Party leadership convention. Okay. And there is jockeying for position going on within the Conservative Party. I quite frankly, and to be honest, don't really care who is the leader of either party. No one person makes the decisions. And I would say most of the decisions are made behind the scenes by people you never see anyway. So who leads the parties is not of primary concern or interest to me. Okay. We don't live in a dictatorship. So leaders are leaders. Now you would prefer that the people who lead a party, and like whether you support, say, the Liberals or the Conservatives, if the party that you don't support gets into power, you would want I would think, that the leader of that party had the best qualities possible, right? Even if they didn't agree with you. So the same thing applies for conservatives. It's interesting with the Conservative Party because there's there's two primary divisions within the Conservative Party. There's what they call social conservatives, and there's what they call fiscal conservatives. And initially, there was a point in time when social conservatives and fiscal conservatives sort of recognized that they had very little in common. Okay, fiscal conservatives were all about money and dog eat dog, right? Where social conservatives tended to come out of traditional values and Christian values, which was more about, love your neighbor, help the stranger, feed the poor, all of these things, right? But over time, as these two forces have united to try to control society. See, the fiscal element is the controlling element of the Conservative Party, okay? But their sort of dog eat dog social Darwinian view of the world is not real popular. It's hard to get elected on that platform with just that platform. So they have to sort of look around and go, okay, so who can help us here? We need more help. So what do? They look to the social conservatives, right? And so they bring them in because they come in with lots of numbers, like big numbers, right? But the fiscal element has still controlled the party. And what I think they've done over time is they've sort of transformed the psychology of social conservatives. So social conservatives today are they're much more aligned with Wall Street than they were, say, 100 years ago, right? But the point is, if somebody is going to lead the Conservative Party, and if the Conservative Party gets elected, you want somebody in power who is going to have, the qualities that you like and maybe the policies. But again, policies, you need to be careful because the leader doesn't make the policies. He sort of can shape policies, and he's got certain powers if he's a prime minister and stuff. But policies tend to be determined at the party level and at the cabinet level, and it's typically not one person. But politicians have certain powers, so they can put things onto the table for discussion. And this is why I focused on Derek Sloan, because Derek Sloan has sort of positioned himself as an SJW dragon slayer. Okay, so he has said, I support true social conservative values, right? I support families. I support, traditional conservative values of all sorts and freedom of speech and all these things. Freedom of speech is going to be a big one. We'll see where he goes with that. He claims to support freedom of speech, but then so does Maxime Bernier, and Maxime Bernier signed on to and has never condemned and was part of the Democracy Under Threat Committee, which put out recommendations to the government that would totally censor social media and digital media and online stuff. So he signed off on that, and the recommendations of that committee went off to the government, some of which I think are in the process of being enacted now. So it's easy to say that you support something, but you got to walk the walk. And so this is the thing with Derek Sloan too. I didn't initially watch the conservative leadership debate, the big one that they had there. But I decided to watch it in retrospect just to see what the dynamics were between the different candidates for the leadership. And what I noticed there is that you've got it's not just Derek Sloan who's talking about trying to restore parental rights, which are under assault here. And the gender issue too. So he's not the only one who's talking about that. But talk is easy. Okay, so Bernier talked about free speech, but when it came time to walk the walk, he has not done anything. He actually went the opposite direction with the Democracy Under Threat Committee. So it's important that people walk the walk. So I announced, I think it was 2 weeks ago, that I had a conservative politician in my sights who claims to be somebody who supports traditional families and parental rights, and does so unapologetically and is not going to back down. I said, I'm going to go after him. I'm going to give him something that he can stand up for, that will, support, traditional values and parental rights and these types of things. And we'll see if he walks the walk. I was not sort of optimistic in that process, but it actually didn't take too long after my first communication with Derek Sloan and his team for him to say that he actually was interested in sponsoring my petition for an inquiry into the transitioning of children, especially vulnerable children. He had to review the text of the petition first and see if he could live with the text and make sure it didn't say something terrible, like take all LGBTQ people and throw them in ovens, or something terrible like that. So he had to review the text, and his team reviewed the text, and there was some debate, and I actually wrote a different draft of the petition text at one point, but he ended up authorizing and agreeing to sponsor the first text of that petition, which should be going active soon. The way that works is, and just sort of like the kudos here to Derek Sloan. Okay, so it's easy to say you oppose the transitioning of vulnerable children and stuff, but it's quite another thing to actually do something about it, right? So here he was given an opportunity to do something about it and support something, and he did it. Okay, so he ended up sponsoring it. He's going to read it into the House of Commons once it has been approved, basically, and that approval process comes in. You all, when I say go, going off to that site, you have to be Canadians, though, so you have to be Canadian citizen. Maybe resident is good enough, but citizen for anybody who's a citizen can vote in the poll to support it or sign it to support it. And once it's been activated that way, then it goes back to Derek Sloan, and he said that he's going to, when he gets the opportunity, he's going to read it into the House of Commons. There's a bit of a process. It's a little slower than I thought, because what happens is there's a multiple step process. You have to sort of validate who you are, validate your text for the petition, confirm that you're from Canada. Then you sort of submit your petition. Then you have to go get a handful of people who co-sponsor from the citizen level the activation of the petition, which I did. I had 5 people. I don't remember all 5 who signed on. And then you have to get a minister or a member of parliament to authorize the petition, right? Because if it's like a petition that says we want all Chinese people sent to China or something, you need an MP to look at it and say, no, look, this is unacceptable. I'm not going to sponsor that. So in this case, Derek Sloan looked at it and he agreed to sponsor it. Actually, more than agreed to sponsor it, he agreed to present it, which is a very, very important and major development for us. It does not guarantee anything other than putting it onto the national table, and that's very important. So people can say what they like about Derek Sloan and his policies and stuff, but in this case, he has, stood up and done something, right? Not just talking the talk, right? All these other candidates for the leadership of the Conservative Party can talk all they like, but nobody's doing anything about it, okay? And we can't wait, and I was going to say you can't wait until the next election, certainly, but we don't even want to wait until after the Conservative leadership convention, because there are kids being transitioned right now. Okay. It's been going on for over 3 years that I've been trying to do this. And they are feeding kids into this pharmaceutical meat grinder year after year. There's no time to waste. So Derek Sloan stepped up to the plate in that regard. And he will be taking it to the House of Commons. Now, after he authorizes it, it goes to what they call the clerk of petitions. Okay, and basically what happens there is a second set of eyes are put on it, and he looks at the text and makes sure that the text is acceptable. And I guess that there's nothing horribly offensive or something like that. And if he thinks it's unacceptable text, he can deny the text and send it back to you and tell you to write new text and resubmit it. In this case, he or she, I don't know if it's gender mistakes. I got to be careful nowadays. He or she has approved the text, and it's now going into the next stage. The next stage is that it is being translated into French, it's being formatted, and they're going to create a petition page. Okay. Once that goes active, that's when you all come into the equation. And this is all hands on deck time. Okay. This is do not mess around time. This is if you care. Okay. If you're a Canadian citizen and you care about what is happening here, we need you to step up to the plate now, and we need you to do it immediately. And we need you to put it at the top of your priority list, because we need this activated quickly so we can get into motion, right? But more than that, okay, the other side, okay, so the people who support gender transitioning and stuff, if they had to get, say 500 names or something in a day or two, they would have no problem doing that, right? Bam, because they got people who are motivated, right? We need to be that motivated now. Okay, so once this petition goes active, I need people to go to it immediately and sign it. And more than that, I would like everybody to consider yourself part of the team. Okay, this is action time. This is not just me. I just happen to be the person who's carrying it. Okay, but this is us. Okay, and we need to do this. So yes, sign it yourself, but if you can get someone else to sign it, just tell them what it is. All we're asking for is a national inquiry to find out what is going on and why so many vulnerable kids are, going through medical sex reassignment. That's all we want. And we want, if you can find other people to sign that petition, the more the better, because we want this thing to be, we want to get to the goal, which is 500 signatures, preferably in a day or two. And we want that to happen quickly. The quicker it happens, the louder the message it says. So we need all hands on deck. This is get serious time. Okay. And for those of you who are conservative inclined out there, okay, those of you who view yourself as conservatives, and I know many of you do, and that's okay. I don't have a problem with you being conservatives. We know what I think in terms of the political establishment, but lots of people support the Conservative Party who follow me. Good, fine, okay, that's right, that's all right. But Derek Sloan is the only person in your party who has stepped up to the plate on this issue, okay? And if he's willing to step up to the plate on this issue, an issue that matters to all of us, maybe there's other things that he claims to stand for that he's going to be willing to step up to the plate on and not just talk. Okay. So if you're in the Conservative Party, then you need to throw him your support during this election campaign, because this is part of my agreement with him, because I got into the discussion with him because he claims to support traditional values. And I said, okay, well, here's your opportunity to support something that's very important to a lot of conservatives out there, and that's getting this national inquiry. And I tell you what, if you support me, I will support you. Okay, because I need my issue to get onto the floor of House of Commons, right? If a lot of people abandon me in this process because I supported a conservative politician, I'm just going to have to take those hits, because getting this into the public eye and onto the national stage is far more important than how many followers I have. But if you're a conservative, quid pro quo, right? Okay, he's done for us. Right? He's sort of proven he's going to walk the walk. If that's a quality that you value, somebody who doesn't just talk, but somebody actually does something, throw your support behind him. If you're conservative leaning and you're not a member of the Conservative Party, maybe join the party. It's like $15 or something. And, take part in the leadership process and give him your support as a thank you, if you will. Okay. Like I say, I don't promote political parties normally. What I'm doing in this case is I am recognizing a politician, and he's not a politician. This is more of a risk to Derek Sloan than it would be, as one person pointed out to me, to some backbencher. Okay. He is a high profile conservative politician who's running for the leadership of the party. And I don't know what he's ranked, but he's probably in the top 3 anyway. Maybe he can pull off a victory in here somehow. And that's sort of my, thing is that, okay, he's willing to go out on a limb on this issue. And I'm sure he knows the pushback that he's going to get. So that says something about him. So I'm going to leave that there. I've given him my endorsement as I agreed to do. I'm going to be writing some op-eds. I've actually already started writing an op-ed. It's maybe half done on this whole issue. I've also gone back to Derek Sloan and Team Sloan with another proposition that I think once again could help him and could move this to the next level. Okay, because we have a problem right now in terms of he's going to read it into the House of Commons, but we don't really have a House of Commons right now because of this COVID-19 thing, right? So who knows when that's going to be? So how do we deal with that, and what do we do with that? There is a way to work around that. We don't have to wait until the House of Commons is up and fully running again. So I've given him a proposal to take it to the next level. And if he does that, I think he will reinforce his position even more, and it will certainly propel us further as well. But this is part of that process where I talked about validating the petition as quickly as possible, because that sends a message to the media. It sends a message to Derek Sloan. It sends a message to everybody that this is an important issue. And also in my post I put out today, where I posted the text of my official endorsement that I sent to the Derek Sloan team, I put in there an email address for Team Sloan. I think it's important that people take the time. Okay, again, we're back to, there's Team Sloan, and then there's Team We Want a National Inquiry, and that's us. Okay, and to say thank you to Derek Sloan, you don't even have to be just a Canadian. Okay, but it's most important for Canadians, and even more important if you're a member of the Conservative Party, to take that time, okay, and be part of this team to get a national inquiry, and send those thank you notes via email. Say thank you, Derek Sloan, for authorizing this petition. What other comments you want to put in there. If you're going to join the party, if you're going to vote for him in the leadership race, mention all of that too. But it would be good for them to see some feedback from the population, because that helps them to make their decisions. Again, I've put something else on the table for Derek Sloan and Team Sloan, because again, this is an alignment of stars, and a very narrow window of opportunity has opened up. And I don't plan to just sit back and let things play out. I am on this. Okay? I'm on this. And if there's something like, if I want to take this as far as I can, right? Somebody has handed me the football and I'm running for the end zone. I'm on this. And I need everybody's support. Okay. Don't just sort of say, okay, yeah, I support you, and then not do anything, right? Send an email to Team Sloan. Say thank you, right? When the petition comes online, sign it immediately. Try to find other people to sign it. It should be easy. It's like I said to people on the other side of this debate. Nobody should be opposed to this inquiry. It's just an inquiry, okay? The truth ideally is, especially if you get me in there, the truth ideally will come out in the laundry, right? So if the other side has nothing to fear, then they'd have nothing to fear from an inquiry. So this is what you can tell other people that you're getting to sign is, listen, all we're asking for is that we have full power to investigate what is going on and why 15 to 20 times as many psychologically troubled kids are identifying as transgender compared to the regular population. And why, in general, so many kids all of a sudden, even those who don't have all the psychological problems, are suddenly identifying as transgender. We need to look at this. We need to research this. And we want an inquiry. That's all we want. Nobody should be opposed to that. And I would say anybody who cares about kids should be 100% behind that. More power to my elbow. You can donate to the candidate, right? So you can donate to the candidate and you can influence others, right? And make a lot of noise, if you will. Let people know. Let your local MP or whoever know who you support, because that's important too. So that is the update that I wanted to give everybody. We've made an advance. We're also, I would say right now, we're going to start separating some of the wheat from the chaff. Okay. We are in a position to make some noise on this effort. And those who are claiming to be concerned about this and wanting to get this onto the national stage should all be rallying behind this effort right now. And those who don't rally behind this effort, well, I'll leave you to decide what that means. Just going to go back and look at some of the notes here. Grifters in every group meant to divine and gain popularity. And there's people who just, that's what they do. Okay, there's people who, in some cases, don't have real jobs, right? Like I've got a real job. I'll be telling the story of what happened at my real job last week that nearly killed me. Probably later this morning, I'll put that out, a little breakdown of what happened, because a lot of people are curious why I say an extreme fluke or an act of God probably saved my life last week. But point is that I have a real job, and there are people in this effort who don't have real jobs, and they are professional grifters. So that's their job. Okay. Now, grifters are not necessarily even what we would call bad people. They're not, and many grifters can be useful in your efforts if they're very skilled. But grifters, these are not the kind of people that you, I would say, want in leadership positions. But for grifters, in some cases, that's all they know how to do, right? And certainly what you don't want from your grifters is when they find a niche where they can get a lot of popularity and get a lot of money and stuff, you don't want them to influence success in the opposite direction because they want to keep on fighting forever because this is a cash cow, right? I don't want to fight for forever on this issue. We don't have time for that. There are kids being destroyed right now. This needs to move ahead now. And whether or not I could have made some sort of career out of this is irrelevant. That should not be your driving motive. I think we're seeing an inversion with postmodernism, Satanism, and transgenderism. They parallel each other in that component. Yeah, there's a lot of inversions going on right now. Like it used to be thought that putting kids on a path or making them into lifelong pharmaceutical customers, that was considered a bad thing. It was the last thing you'd want to do with the kids, right? You don't want to put them on pharmaceuticals for their entire lifetimes. Now that's considered a good thing. Okay. I'm glad you say postmodernism and not Marxism, because this sort of identity politics that people keep describing as Marxism or communism or whatever is actually comes out of postmodernism, and it's identity related. It's got very little to do with the key tenets of Marxism. Everybody, like some of the people in that group will call themselves Marxists, and certainly people on the right side will call them Marxists all the time. But I've met and seen virtually nobody in the identity politics movement who actually supports the key principles of Marxism. So calling them Marxists is just it's like calling conservatives Nazis. Right? It's not going to do any good because it's not true. What it will do is inflame, right? Because there will be people who believe these labels and, either hate Marxism or hate Nazis. And so either anyone who is one of those things, I hate them and want to kill them. But if it's a false label, well, then your hatred is based on nothing. And that's one of the problems over there is this identity politics is not Marxism. If you want to call it postmodernism, go ahead. Call it postmodernism. I don't have a problem with that. If you want to call it identity politics, go ahead. Call it identity politics. There's a lot of identity politics going on over there. But Marxism has a meaning, okay? It's people who follow the beliefs and political ideology of Karl Marx. And if you look at the Communist Manifesto, there are specific things outlined there, right? Somebody told me that the leader of Black Lives Matter said that she's a trained Marxist, right? And yet when I go through what she has said and what they're calling for, I don't see anything resembling Marxism in there. Okay, so Marxism calls for one of the key things that Marx talks about in the Communist Manifesto, and one of the most important things, is an end to private property. Okay, no more private property. That is a central tenet of Marxism. More than that, and especially what they call bourgeois private property. So the property owned by the super elite and super wealthy, that is all supposed to be nationalized. Okay, and also all major industry is to be nationalized, and production is to be controlled by workers. There's all kinds of these sort of central tenets of Marxism that you can't have Marxism without the central tenets. So somebody like the BLM person says, well, I'm a trained Marxist, but they're not calling for the nationalization of all major industry. They're not Marxists. I'm sorry. You can call them whatever you like, but they're not Marxists. It's one of my pet peeves. It drives me crazy. Not everybody has a degree in political science. I get that, but the concepts of Marxism are pretty easy. The Communist Manifesto, for instance, is a pretty short document, and it lists them all out there. I'm trying to work with as much integrity as I can. I don't even want to say as much integrity as I can, because I am sincere in everything I do. Okay, I sincerely want to achieve this national inquiry. That is my initiative. And what I say I want to achieve is what I want to achieve. On the political landscape, you have to dance. Okay, you have to maneuver yourself, right? And you have to make deals, like the deal I made with Derek Sloan and stuff. So there is finagling that you have to do in that process. And particularly in controlling public impressions, you always have to sort of be very sort of calculated in what you do. So I can be very calculated. I would say I'm always very calculated when I'm dealing with the media and public impressions. But I believe that that is critical, right? It's not optional, it is critical. But my intentions are sincere. If I say I'm not interested in money, it's I'm not interested in money. Okay. If I was interested in money, I would have gone along to get along, right? When I had my big blow up with the West Coast Christian Accord gang, for instance, that was like a financially disastrous decision on my part. But I didn't like the text of the West Coast Christian Accord. I didn't like the way they were approaching it. And so this led to sort of a blow up and eventually a breakup with Laura Lynn. And there's all kinds of stuff with that too. And there's another thing, right? Go along to get along. If I'd gone along to get along in that situation, it could have been turned into a cash cow, but that's not what drives me. Some people, fiscal conservatives, might say that that makes me a sucker. But I believe in integrity, and I believe that you have to be sincere in what you're doing, and I believe that money can't drive you, right? Money can be a factor, okay? Because again, if I hadn't gotten some financial support, I would have been ruined completely by now. So money is a factor, but money can never be the lead, okay? Nor can how popular you are be the lead. So if you just want to be, Mr. or Ms. Popularity, that's just as bad as wanting, making money your lead as far as I'm concerned. I do things all the time that result in me losing popularity. But usually it's because I'm speaking what I think is true. That's what takes primacy for me. Question is, when is the petition live? It should be live, hopefully, in the next day or two. I don't know exactly. They say allow up to 5 days, but it should be very soon. Whenever it's live, I will be doing an emergency broadcast. I will be doing an all hands on deck broadcast saying, everybody, slide down that telephone or that metal fire pole now and get into the emergency vehicle, 5-alarm event. We all need to get on this now. I will announce that. Yes, we figured that out, but you can support. Derek. And that is like, it's sort of a thing. I mean, so yeah, memberships are important. And Tim says, we'll be signing and circulating that petition. It's good to hear from you on this, Jen. You've done a lot of work on this issue. Looking forward to following. I'll do my best. Again, there's no guarantees in what's happening right now. This, it doesn't have to be, it could just die on the vine. That's possible, but I'm not going to let it go, and I'm going to proceed as if this is an important opportunity. It's not always easy to get somebody who is high ranking enough to be running for the leadership of a party to support something that you're doing. And just imagine, right? So I say, if you're like a member of the Conservative Party, vote for Derek Sloan in the leadership race, right? Imagine, if you will, we've got Derek Sloan now agreeing to read into the House of Commons this call for a national inquiry. Imagine how much more powerful that call will be if Derek Sloan is the leader of the Conservative Party. Okay? If you're a member of the Conservative Party out there, you've got the power. Marxism, I think calling what's going on with identity politics, Marxism is all about the game of division. Okay, the people at the top want to keep everybody divided, and it's easy to demonize. It's always been easy to demonize Marxists and communists. I mean, most communists aren't communists. Everybody talks about communist China. Communist China is not communist China. Communist China is, it should be called brutal state capitalist China. Beijing has more billionaires than any other city in the world. Okay. It is a brutal form of totalitarian state capitalism. It's nothing to be admired or emulated. But it is not communism. At least not any sort of communism that Marx would have recognized, right? He would have looked at it and said, what the hell is this? You're calling this a Marxist communist state? Are you out of your minds? So that is the update. As Bruce Cockburn said, we're going to keep on kicking at the darkness until it bleeds daylight. Ideally. But again, I want to succeed, right? I've been working a long time. I want to succeed. But I do believe in a higher power. And I ultimately think that victory is, I've had this screen up the whole time. Wrong one. Victory is not for me. That's not, that's not my responsibility. There's a higher force at work in all of this, and I'm not expected to succeed. I believe that my duty, my responsibility is to pursue what I believe is true and correct and right. And I have to pursue that with all of my heart and never give up, right? Just keep going and going, like over 3 years, right? Hasn't been easy, right? Knocked down multiple times, constant disappointments and setbacks. But whenever you're knocked down, you got to get back up, right? That's my duty. I would say that's everybody's duty. It's just to keep going towards what is true and correct. You can never give up on what is good. You have a responsibility to the children of this world and to the future. Okay, you can't let it go. So if this current initiative of mine, doesn't result in anything, I can't let it go. We can't let it go. We have to keep going. That's my philosophy anyway. Victory is that's not my responsibility. I want victory. I want to win, right? I'd like to reach a time where my goals are achieved and I can sit back and, relax for a change. But I feel like now we're in such a dangerous time in the world that, what does the Bible say? The Bible says, work now while it is day, for soon the night will come when none shall work anymore. So I'm working now while it's day. So I think that's all I have to say. Was there anything else I wanted to cover? Let's just see what I put out on Facebook. Oh, yes, I remember. There was a debate that emerged around my John Euler interview. Some people were saying that John Euler is anti-homosexual and stuff like that. I know that John is a Christian and he has traditional Christian values, which is not a crime. Excuse me. He seems like I don't know John very well. I spent 3 evenings talking to him to do the interviews that I did, but I couldn't say that I know him or everything that he's about, nor do I feel I have a responsibility to know him or everything he's about. If he's done things in the past that I might not agree with, well, I can't know everything that he's done. I can't know every alliance he's made. It's not my responsibility. I was just talking to him, and people can listen to the talk and decide for themselves what they make of John. Okay. Seems like a decent guy to me. I didn't get any vibes of hatred or intolerance from him. I know he doesn't like these programs in school that are indoctrinating kids. But I've said all along that I don't think they should be teaching. I don't think there's any reason to teach sex ed in schools anymore. Okay. I believe that should all be done online now. I don't believe there's any excuse why it shouldn't be done online. So right now, what they're doing, say with SOGI 123 and with the current sex ed curriculum, is they have this one program that contains all of this stuff. Some of the stuff is offensive to people with traditional values, but they say, no, we have to teach everybody this, right? So it's this one program, but we don't need to do that anymore. We could have 10 different sex ed programs, each one tailored in a cooperative effort between, say, the Ministry of Education and people from different worldviews and values to, reflect what they think the kids should be taught, right? And be sensitive to their beliefs and values. We have 10 different versions. Parents could, go online and choose the version that they think is best. And that would take so much of this controversy and debate out of the schools, right? And that's empowering parents. That's sort of part of what we're looking to do. I would say in the long run is return some of the power to parents. But we have people in our establishment who don't want parents to have power, right? They want control of their kids. But if they were sincere in respecting diversity, then they would respect a diversity of people with traditional values and Christian values, right? I don't agree. Like a lot of the people whose rights I've been fighting for over the last 3 years, and I have fought for the right of Christians to have their beliefs and values and to raise their kids the way they want. And if they don't want their kids taught all of this LGBTQ stuff, they should have the right to not have them taught all of that stuff. Okay, so I may not agree with their all the details of their worldviews, but I don't have to agree. We're in a diverse society. Okay, we're supposed to respect diversity, but apparently there's only one kind of diversity that we're allowed to respect, right? True diversity would respect all of these different belief systems and would seek to accommodate them and respect them. And we could do that in the sex ed case with online sex ed programs. And I advocate that. And maybe at some point people should get behind me and we should move towards this. It would end the debate. Okay. Who wants to force somebody else to teach, their kids something that they don't believe in? Why would you do that? Right. Jennifer PM. Yeah. I've said this before. If I was an elected politician in Ottawa, I would probably spend more time at the bottom of the Ottawa River than I would in a chair in the House of Commons. I don't know if there's a place for somebody like me in Ottawa. No problem. Yeah, somebody was saying that because, this was their argument. They said, because Jen Smith interviewed John Euler, nobody should support his call to get an inquiry. going through the comments here. I don't know enough about John to be able to say. I didn't detect any. I believe in the body of the interview. I believe he said that he doesn't care what adults do. He just doesn't want kids being manipulated. But as far as what anybody does in their bedroom, I think he doesn't really care. He's maybe like me in the sense that I believe that that's between the individuals and God, or their lack of a God, or whatever. It's none of anybody's business. Okay. What they had said was that he was somehow connected to mass resistance, which is rather notorious for sometimes saying some rather offensive things. I know when I was in, I think it was Oak Bay in Victoria, when there was this big sort of massive mob mobilized to protest me in Oak Bay, mass resistance decided they were going to rush to my defense and start a petition calling to protect me. And I went and I read the petition, and it was full of all of this highly offensive language. And I was like, oh, please. I appreciate the support, but if you can, be a silent partner, that would be awesome. But I mean, like, there are elements within mass resistance that I would call genuinely bigoted, and I really don't want anything to do with them. I've never done anything or aligned with mass resistance myself because of my concerns about some of the stuff that they've done. I mean, they're all welcome to believe what they want. They made Bill Walcott, for instance, the leader of Mass Resistance Canada. I don't think that any Christian should want Bill Walcott as their leader. Bill Walcott's a brave guy. He's a fighter, but he does and says things that are incredibly stupid. He's a lousy person to have leading. If you want someone to be a leader of the Christian community, I would suggest you need to look to somebody more like C.S. Lewis. Okay, intelligent, calm, respectful. These are the types of people that you would want to have as your leaders, I would suggest. So mass resistance, why would you make Bill Walcott a leader unless you were looking to provoke? So they said that because John Euler somehow supported mass resistance or something, that this therefore meant that John was bad. I had no knowledge of his connection to mass resistance. I know people who follow mass resistance. I think maybe some of the people who follow it maybe agree with some of the stuff that they put out and disagree with other stuff. I don't know. Just because you read the stuff that's put out by mass resistance doesn't mean that you're automatically a bigot. Nope. Oh, it's indoctrination. It's romancing the minds of these kids. They're brainwashing them. So that was the banner that I had made for, I don't know if it was my first rally protest I did outside the legislature, or the second one. We had this banner made up that said, SOGI 123 equal child brainwashing 101. That was my clever little slogan. Leave the kids alone. Yes, can we just agree at some point to say where babies really come from? Well, this is about getting back to reality. Okay, so this is the whole thing that people who want to sort of try to say that I'm transphobic, right? Even though, I wear skirts and makeup and all this stuff all the time. I would say that saying that I'm transphobic is patently absurd. Potentially libelous. I really don't care how any adult wants to dress and present to the world. But for me, transgender is, again, back to that state of mind that I talked about earlier. It's a state of mind. It's a way of interacting with the world. It's kind of like being, there's a lot of similarities between transgender identity, sort of in a broader sense. Certainly if you look at the activist community with a religion, okay? So religion is, part of your identity. But you can't deny physical reality. And I believe it is virtually criminal negligence to be in schools telling boys that they can be girls. Okay, this needs to stop. Okay, if for no other reason than the fact that it is not true. Okay, and everybody knows that it's not true. There are a lot of people out there who have been conditioned not to say what they know because they have to be tolerant. You have to be tolerant and allow reality to be trampled underfoot. My position is, for me, let's say at my most blingiest, when I'm wearing a skirt and all of the, flashy crystals and jewels, and I'm all totally femmed out as much as I can be, my identifier is transgender, not a woman. Okay, I cannot, nor could I ever be a woman. Okay, not only can I, or should I not identify as a woman, or anybody like me identify as a woman, you should not be offended if you simply identify as transgender, and then people use whatever pronouns, like to call me a he when I'm, totally femmed out, is not offensive. It's a reflection of a truth, and in some cases, it's an important truth. Right? It shouldn't be offensive. If you think it is, if it's just too much for you, if you're born male, to be referred to using male identifiers, well, then we need, and maybe can consider, new identifiers, the Z-Zer stuff. Okay, it's better than surrendering reality. Okay, Jordan Peterson doesn't care. Peterson, for instance, he will surrender reality, and he will refer to a man as a woman as long as that woman turns that transgender woman turns him on. Okay, if he looks at Theron Meyer and he starts getting excited, then he says, "Okay, you're a real woman. I'll call you she and her and all of this stuff." Right? But that's that's part of the game that they've played now, because you can't do it that way. You can't make looks a criteria. I don't know. I'll just leave that alone, I guess. I was born with DSD and got my sex ed at home via public health nurse. There's no reason why parents can't take over sex ed with the help of the school or with the help of whatever person who's qualified to teach the subject that they want. Sexual education should be just what they need to know, and should be as respectful and as gentle as possible, and not digress into conditioning. Okay. Not say, for instance, rolling out all of these potential sexual identities and say all of these are okay. These are value judgments, right? So that, I don't think we don't even, you don't even need to talk about that. I mean, I think we're beyond that in society now. Why are we still talking about it? Keep our chi inside and our humanity out. Something like that. A mixed school program wouldn't fit the indoctrination. That's right. This is what I said. They said that the Soji 123 is all about diversity. And I've said Soji 123 is the least diverse program I can think of. Okay. Because it conditions everybody to believe the same thing about what they call diversity. right? It totally disrespects other forms of diversity and like traditional values and stuff like that. Tramples traditional values and Christian values, which happens to be the majority of the population. It tramples them underfoot. How is that respecting diversity? They don't even mention heterosexuality. You look at Soji 123 and they list all of this stuff in there. They don't mention heterosexuality, right? And you listen to Steve Mulligan, who's one of the chief architects behind Soji 123, one of the chief brainwashers, and he admits that educating kids is as much about what you don't say and what you don't bring up as what you do. And so that's why they constantly leave heterosexuality out of the discussion. But that's not very diverse now, is it? Energy ball. Well, I don't know how beautiful I am. I'm getting old. I'm a little heavier than I was even a year ago. Has to do with bad diet, I think. Don't have time. What is needed to know? Sex ed, able to ask questions. It was shown respectful medical film. So yeah, I'd say at the appropriate age and the information that is needed to keep you healthy. And, make sure that you don't end up pregnant. If you're a female, oh my goodness. I shouldn't be saying only females get pregnant. I'm such a bigot. Somebody call the police. I think I just committed a crime. Hi, Julia. Yep. I'm still here. Yep. I've been going through the chat. So yeah, I think I've spent enough time on here though. Things are afoot. The game is afoot. What I want people to remember is I will be sounding an alarm once the petition is active, and I need everybody to scramble like it's a fire alarm. Okay, we need to get out, get to the petition, sign it, get as many other people. Okay, this is like a fire. I consider it like a fire in the town. Not just you. Get other people out to help put out the fire as well. We need to throw as much water into this petition as quickly as possible. Yeah, so we can get on to the next stage. So we can first of all, do it in an impressive way and get on to the next stage. And we'll see. I've got other ideas out there. We'll see where that leads to. And I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And cross your fingers, say your prayers, whatever you want to do. Let's hope this window of opportunity leads to something good. Again, just to underscore, can't just be me. I need everybody's help. Okay, the window has been cracked open, but I need you guys all to show up and lift me up and push me through the window. Once I'm into the window, once I'm into the mansion, I'm going straight for the good silverware and the jewels, and I'll get out of there with as much as I can, as quickly as I can. Savvy? Anyway, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Talk to you later. Bye.